Winston's been coming here for the majority of his 70 years. So I think when Hone and who's my relation, and Annette and the others, when you lead with your chin with Winston Peters, you just know that there's going to be a robust, colourful, if not fiery response.
Was it more than you expected, or did you feel quite comfortable about all of that today?
Well, there is a mercurial quality to the leadership style of my leader. And you know why it comes out that way? Because this is a person who deeply values his own legacy. The person who stopped Ngāti Wai in 1975 losing their land. The man whose grandfather was one of the original owners of Little Barrier and Poor Knights. And the man whose nana is the sister of King Tāwhiao. So you've got to imagine, he's not just standing as a parliamentarian, he's also standing as a leading Ngāpuhi identity.
When you're telling people to get an education and cut the crap though, is that sort of reading the room?
Like I said, why would anyone be surprised about Winston's delivery? I'm not.
Can you tell us a little bit about the haka after your korero today? What reflects that?
The rangatahi said to me, Matua, our parents don't fully agree with everything you say, but when you speak, because you are the receptacle of the Ngāpuhi history, we stand with you. We draw a distinction between parliamentary politics and your status as an identity here in Taitokerau, and they had no compunction in doing that. Many of them are related to me. I think the haka went on a little bit long. They should have chosen a shorter haka, but then I'm hardly twiggy, so I'll just stop right there.
It's offered an apology.
Sorry?
It's came out and offered an apology to you guys on the reception that was received by Winston and David Senior, on behalf of the crowd, saying that it was not appropriate.
Oh, okay. Oh, look, I had a burst of it at Ratana, and I helped incite it at Ratana. Once I got hoha with that young boy from Tūhoe. So it was a bit disappointing, and it does make it a bit awkward for similar sessions of the whare kōrero. But I think both Winston and I know people have got pent-up emotions. Whether you think they're driven by misinformation or different priorities, people are on edge.
How do you think the day reflects on Ngāpuhi?
Oh, it was a classic Ngāpuhi day. You can look at the great saying of Ngāpuhi, and ladies, don't boot me when I say this, is Ngāpuhi ko haoro, Ngāpuhi of 100 holes, i.e. each hole, each valley, each hollow has its own musket. So you're always going to get a whole lot of diversity in Ngāpuhi, and generally they come together when there's a common foe. I hope today I didn't represent that common foe.
We saw the tikanga evolve quite a bit today with the way that the likes of Hana Harawira and its rights, a lot of them were able to come on, the haka was able to come on, etc. Do you think that is, progress from Ngāpuhi and progress within race relations, that the conversation is more wholesome, I guess, and the exchanges are more frank now than perhaps they have been in previous years?
Yeah, when I grew up, there were very rare occasions when women spoke, other than on the marae where the men from the Māori battalion either were too damaged or they never came home. So I grew up in our little maraes, lots of women spoke. But look, I celebrate whoever the architects were today, of Mere speaking, my ACT colleague from Ngāpuhi, and I do think that they were unnecessarily rude to her, given that her whānau produced the last regimental sergeant major of the Māori battalion, a genuine Kauri tree and tōtara tree. But hey, young people, I was young once, you get in the hot sun and get a bit of passion in you, you get slightly carried away.
Napoli also invited the other iwi to sit with him as another whenua.
Yeah.
A bit unusual.
Yeah. I can count on the limited number of mati I've got on my hand, seeing the Māori.
Can you talk about how significant that was?
Oh no, I think seeing certainly the leader of the Ratana Church, our own Bishop Kito, and King Tuheitia, that was a very significant presence, and that's why I recited the genealogy, because his grandmother comes from Ngāpuhi in the far north.
And in reciting referring to the various iwi, And his science called you out for not mentioning Arawa. Was that an oversight, or was she right?
Yeah, well, Annette and I went to university together. She's made an art form about correcting me. So, but having said that, I was referring to the iwi that who had a lot to do with the creation of the Waitangi waka and the Waitangi meeting house.
Is it good art, Shane?
Pardon?
She's made an art form of it. Is it good art?
Well, I wouldn't underestimate Annette's ability to get under the skin of Māori men.
Minister, the crowd here really wanted the treaty issues dealt with, and a common sentiment I heard was that, you know, we might not agree with Jane Jones or Winston Peters or David Seymour, but at least you're engaging. The Prime Minister didn't. What did you make of that? Do you think that's appropriate to just sidestep the main kaupapa?
I think the guy was asked to talk about 2040, and that was the kaupapa that Pita Tipene laid down, and 2040 is partially about the treaty because it's 200 years, but it's about a whole lot of other things as well. It's about the ethos that drives lifestyle choices, it's about demography, it's about the future of our country that contains challenges for all sorts of New Zealanders. So no, I didn't think it was off colour at all. I do think, however, that I personally, and I'm going to take a big role in helping to navigate the way forward on the treaty principles matters.
What does that look like?
Well, number one, I haven't seen what was the final shape and form of the principles, but it strikes me as extraordinarily challenging to distill or isolate principles underlying this bilingual document between the British Crown and the tribes of Māoridom without acknowledging that most of the treaty settlements have resulted in distinctive property rights being recognised that are not the same as the property rights of most other Kiwis. All you've got to do is look at the Māori Land Court, the Ngaitahu settlement, the Tainui settlement, and that was the essential bargain in doing these earlier settlements. In our party, New Zealand First, we're not doing anything to unravel those settlements, and we realise that there are unique entitlements that were part of the deal to do those settlements.
So your leader identified himself as someone who had defended land rights for decades.
Yep.
Called out the crowd for not having done that. This is a crowd full of protesters over the decades, going back to Ngātama Toa, who are here for 53 years. You may know there's a photographic exhibition here at the moment.
Oh yes, I think I feature in
You're in it.
Yes, much skinnier. Yeah.
Maybe, but I just wonder why he was complaining that he wasn't talking to people with a
He was possibly talking to the younger generation. I didn't. I'm not trying to dodge you, Simon. I didn't pay much attention to that. But you know, you in Māoridom, you expect a certain level of respect if you've done the hard yards. And whether people like it or not, I mean, it was Winston who countenanced the $100 million being spent.
Why did he not respect their culture?
Pardon?
I'm really asking you, why do you think he didn't respect their culture?
Oh, I think respect goes two ways. And Winston has had a long established history of fighting and delivering on lost Māori land. He gave Tūhoi their farm back. He saved the Tauranga iwi and their kiwi fruit developments, much to the chagrin of Ruth Richardson, but no one remembers that. It's all as if everything that's making people hoha today just started with the arrival of our government 10 weeks ago, and I think that's what he was responding to.
The Prime Minister's speech, I mean, it was you yourself who said, you know, haere mai ki te Waitangi. If you're going to talk about the treaty, you come to Waitangi and you talk about it.
Yep.
The prevailing corridor, as you well know, has been about the treaty principles bill to an extent. You know, why? Surely you can't say that he is responding to the corridor of Waitangi now in a full manner, given your comments and the comments over the last couple of days.
Well, look, my corridor was directed, as you well know, to Rahui Papa and the others who were playing up at Ratana. But there's going to be a lot more political water under this bridge.
On your right, you're talking about you're going to take up a bigger role in this space. Is it because the likes of the Prime Minister isn't discussing it?
No, I just think that given that I've led with my chin over the future of the Waitangi Tribunal, I got pinged for that by Annette. I've led with my chin that there's 57 references to the principles of the Treaty of Waitangi in legislation. Are all of them still relevant? Do they add value? Do we even know what they mean? And I've got to get out there and convince more people that that does not mean a distortion or a disfigurement of the articles, the upoko of the treaty. I mean, in 2040, the treaty will still be around. In 2040, our population will have changed because immigration is growing week by week, which is another issue. But I say to our iwi, you know, you need to be absolutely sure that we develop and create opportunities and boost the confidence of our own people as the nature of New Zealand's population changes.
It's changing giving some sort of legitimacy to David Seymour's debate or something, because I mean you have a long history in terms of progressing the use of reo, and now you seem to be saying, well, you want a piece of his pie in the sort of debate that he's having. So is this about you being there and being present in that conversation because you feel like you have a little bit more mana or a little bit more leeway because of your history?
Well, that's a good question. I'm not suggesting that my pedigree or legacy should prevent him from leading the debate, but we're three parties in this government, and we need to ensure that as this debate goes forward, we have a long-term view to the interests of all Kiwis.
You don't have to help him though, you're choosing to.
Pardon?
You don't have to help him, you're choosing to.
No, he can do his own heavy lifting, but I can't walk away from the fact New Zealand First in our coalition agreement, we didn't go for a bill, but we did make a request that the other parties back us on changes. Now, they're not inordinately significant because they're reviews, but I just think it'd be a bit disingenuous if I didn't actually put my hand up and say, well, partly what we campaigned on does require us to own up to it.
Speaking to people milling about on the treaty grounds over the last few days, a key thing that's come up at least a couple of times is that people fear that the government is taking away their, quote, Māori tanga. Can I get your response to that?
Yeah, I don't believe anything that our government is doing is delegitimising a personal choice that many people make to be Māori. Let's face it, if you go to Ngāi Tahu, if you were to measure how far they're away from their original Blue Book tupunas, it's a long way. But they are entitled to choose, like Maturata said when he changed the Māori Land Act. You just have to be an uri, you have to be a descendant of a Māori, and if you choose to accentuate that part of your whakapapa, they're entitled to do that. And I just genuinely cannot see anything that we're doing with the language, funding wānanga, funding marae, delegitimises what it means to be Māori. We are opening up a debate, I'll admit, on the role of the tribunal and the direction of travel in terms of how many other places is a reference pertaining to the principles of the Treaty of Waitangi going to be used. But I don't think it's fair to say that delegitimises people's choices to accentuate, own and embrace their sense of Māoriness.
Last year, you put a critical of Christopher Luxon for reading of cue cards when he gave his speech here in Waitangi.
Was I?
Yeah, you said that you wanted to see him speak from the heart, because that's how you do it, listen and respond. And this year he read his speech yet again. So
Yes, oh well, some of us grew up in the art of oratory and have the ability to speak off the cuff, and I think the man today is the Prime Minister. Helen Clark always had notes. John Key not necessarily did, but most of the words that he used were blown away by the wind. That's why there's not much of a legacy from John Key.
Are you giving some lessons?
Oh, he's got Tama there. Yeah, Tama will keep an eye on helping the PM, but if the PM ever requires any tautoho from myself, of course I'll give it. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. E te iwi.